Hello everyone and welcome to our channel. Today we're going to be playing with the Genestealer cults versus the Sisters of Battle in a 2,000 point game. Alright, so I have 2,000 points of Genestealer cults and I'm tired of them being pushed back constantly. I mean, I have so much of my army in reserve, there's nothing really to hold back, so today I'm going to try to build a army that has very little reserves but will punch forward. And how I decided to build that is first with a warlord, a primus, not a patriarch. I found them to be a little underwhelming. I mean, with the type of builds I've been doing, they haven't been really that well supported. And a magus who has 3 spells. So magus has mass hypnosis, might from beyond, and psychic stimulus. Because they've received the meditations in the shadow, they have a psychic familiar, and they have the relic the crouchling. And so then I have a Kellermorph as a part of the force organization charts, the no force org. So this guy is around, he's going to be a good assassin. I have the Nexos as part of that as well. And the main HQs are a little iffy, but I brought because a Battle Scribe has some issues with Genestealer cults, so I also brought a Biophagus. Who has Alchemist Supreme, and he has given his Alchemist Supreme ability to the giant unit of Acolytes I have. And the Nexos has Cranial Inlay. And so that's my HQ. Then over to troops, which is extensive. So we're going to start off with this unit of Neophytes. So it's a unit of 20 with an icon, and they have 4 flamers, because I can have 2 per 10. They have no heavy weapons, but they all have shotguns. And they have lying in wait, so they have the 3-inch Deep Strike. Then I have the best units that I've had in the game constantly is the Acolytes with hand flamers. So I have a unit of 15, and they have Excavate. I might as well give it to them, so I'll be able to destroy 1 terrain piece at the beginning of the game and make it irritant to my opponent. Then I have 3 units of Neophytes in squads of 10. They have 2 flamers and 2 seismic cannons each, and all the rest are shotguns. I ended up with this model. It has last gun, but I thought it was shotgun. It's really hard to tell from a distance, but whatever. So 3 units of 10. Then I have 3 units of Genestealers. 1 giant unit of Genestealers with Swift and Deadly, or no, they came from below. So these guys will either be getting a free move at the start of the game, or when they're revealed, or they're going into ambush. So we'll see. And then I have 2 other units of Genestealers. And then finally in the Elites section, for the first time I'm bringing them, Hybrid Metamorphs, which are the best of both worlds of Human and Genestealer. They're in fact stronger than Genestealers, with hitting at Strength 5. And so 3 attacks each, Strength 5, AP -3, so they're part Genestealer, part Human, and I gave them all hand flamers. So this is going to be interesting to see. And then, to make my army more survivable, I have 3 Goliath trucks, which will be transporting and protecting all the key units. And then, I have 3 Goliath rock grinders, which will also be transporting key units. However, one of the major differences is, only one of them has the mining laser. It's been a mixed bag. It is a good anti-tank weapon, but it misses too often and just underwhelms. So 2 of these rock grinders have the Clearance Incinerator, which is a long-range, heavy flamer, with 2d6, strength 6, AP -1. So they will be purposely getting in their face and assaulting. And the rock grinder that has the mining laser will have a blue outline. And also to note that every single one of these vehicles has a demolition charge, which can only be used if they have troops inside, but if they die, I can forcibly explode them. So that's going to be pretty useful. I mean, even in death, they're going to take out a lot. So, and that's 2,000 points. The last thing I'll say, I'm using the Twisted Helix, so I will have +1 strength in combat, +1 to move, and I also have all my units have transhuman, even the vehicles, but it only applies to 1s and 2s. So that is 2,000 points of what I believe to be an offensive, push-forward Genestealer cult.
Alright you guys, so today I'm playing 2,000 points of Sisters of Battle, Adeptus Sororitas. I got really fascinated with Dominions and Immolators, and I almost took a Spearhead detachment, but then I realized that Immolators are actually dedicated transports, so then that changed everything. But of course, having all the shooting that I do have took up a lot of points. So this army is distinctively smaller than last time's. So I'm playing the Argent Shroud, which basically allows my guys to move, run, and shoot in the same turn, and they get to reroll one hit roll or one wound roll per, I believe, just in general, like per phase. Starting off with my Warlord, it is Morven Val. She is Supreme Commander, so she has to be my Warlord if she's in by default. She's also a High Lord of the Imperium, so that's pretty cool. So she's pretty default. She's got what she's got, and hopefully what she's got is good. I haven't taken her before, so it'll be interesting to see. The other HQ I have is this Missionary. That's pretty much it. He has the base Warhymn, and then he has the Psalm of Righteous Smiting, which gives him +1 strength and attack. And it improves the armor penetration characteristic of melee weapons that he has by 1. And he can fight an additional time if he's still in engagement range by the end of the phase. I actually didn't know that the last time I took him, but okay, great. As far as troops go, super simple. Just 3 squads of Battle Sisters, 5, so the minimum amount. Basic, they don't have anything unique or anything like that. Elites, though, I wanted to try out the Paragon War Suits. So, ironically, they're actually backwards. So, the Paragon Superior, she does have the mace, but she has a Melta, whereas the other 2 guys have the swords, but they actually just have the Heavy Bolter and not the Melta, so that was my bad. And then I have another squad of 10 of the Celestian Sacrosands. 5 have hollowed maces, 4 have the anointed halberds, and the Sacrosandt Superior has both the Spear of the Faithful and an Inferno pistol, which is basically a 6-inch Melta. Going over into fast attacks, I have 3 squads of Dominions. Each one has the Artificer Crafted Stormbolter, and then the Dominion Superior just has nothing. She just has the bolt gun. But all 3 of these squads are in Immolators, of which all have just the Heavy Flamers and a Heavy Bolter. And so I'm going to try out the combo where the Dominions, they and the transport they're in get a free 6-inch move at the beginning of the game, and couple that with the run and shoot ability of the Argent Shroud, and hope for something interesting before they die, inevitably. All the way back in the heavy support, I have 2 Exorcists. Now each one has one of the different guns. They have 2 main guns that they can choose. So one has the Exorcist Conflagration Rockets, and the other has the Exorcist Missile Launcher. And so I wanted to give both of those a go and just kind of see what they're like. And then in the middle, I took a Castigator with the Battle Cannon. So it has the 2 different shells. And I just kind of wanted to see what their kind of heavier shooting looks like and what it can do, because I know usually with Sisters, they're more of a horde kind of vibe. So I just wanted to see how this would play. And I guess we'll see.
Alright, so for today's mission, it is Tide of Conviction, which is we only get command points if we control our objective marker in our deployment zone, and it's Control 2, Control 3, Control More. But we had to read this like 5 or 6 times to understand it. But basically, at the end of every turn except for the 5th turn, if we are able to control an objective marker in our opponent's territory, not the deployment zone, so either the 2 in front of the red line or the 2 in front of the blue line, if we can control our opponent's one, we get 2 points at the end of our turn. However, at the very last turn, we gain 2 victory points for each of our opponent's objectives that we control at the end of our 5th turn, and we'll gain 4 points if we control their deployment zone one at the end of our 5th turn. So that's going to be interesting. So we'll see how this goes. Alright, so going in, I had no plan except that I need to have cover for my troops to move up into, and for line of sight purposes and for creating blockades. And after that, I had no plan apart from making a good terrain piece to protect my command core. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I had no ideas after that.
Yeah, I didn't have any ideas to begin with, so essentially I don't know. I had some shooting stuff, but I was also planning on running around because I can run and shoot. So I just had buildings sporadic. I wanted to put stuff sporadically so I could like have places I could run to and hide behind, and then shoot or whatever. But man, this is I don't know. I feel like this is super open somehow. Like there's just big like visible chunks from it. Well, anyway, okay, we'll see. But yeah, so I guess this is what happens when you don't necessarily have a play.
Alright then, for secondaries, for Genestealer Cult, I'm going with engage on all fronts, grind them down, and bring it down. So, I'm going to be everywhere, and so I'm hoping that I can do engage on all fronts, grind them down. He has a bunch of smaller units, so do I, but maybe I can do better because they're pretty well armored. And bring it down, he has a lot of vehicles, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, so for me, I was going to do engage on all fronts, but then I realized that my faction-specific one was in that slot, so I went with defend the shrine. I'm trying out some of their secondaries, because I know with the older books they don't really work so well, but this is a newer book, so I went with defend the shrine, which is Adeptus Sororitas specific. I did to the last, because my expensive tanks have a lot of range, so I thought that might maybe be an easy one to hold on to. And with all Genestealer cults, he has a ridiculous amount of characters, so assassination, I think will work. We'll see.
Alright, so I never really make use of the ambush markers, but this time I'm going to, because I find that technically they can be used to sort of protect your troops. I mean, my opponent has no idea what he's dealing with, and I have half a memory of what I put them out. But basically, if infantry are in it and he tries to move to shoot them, basically how ambushing works is I place one model in the center of the objective, or as close as I can for it, and then the rest are built out around that. And so it could be used to, if he's trying to get around cover and stuff, I could use it to save more guys by spawning them in cover, better protected. And apart from that, there are a few stratagems that I can do to help, like, screw him over and stuff, and so that he could be building forces in the wrong spot. But for me, right now I'm just focusing on just having my guys ready to move forward and take objectives and move from cover to cover. So that's overall my plan.
So for my plan, I essentially am going to run forward, because most of my shooting is short range. Run forward, shoot a whole bunch, hope they don't die on the first turn. And then with my long range stuff, I'll try and pick off some heavier targets like his vehicles, and kind of hold the back. And yeah, that's really kind of it. Give time for my 2 melee squads to kind of make their way up, to really kind of do some damage, but so I'll be trying to focus more on the shooting side.
Alright, so as far as going first, yeah, I'd want to go first because I'll get some first turn charges off, a lot of first turn shots off, and so overall it's very good for me to go first. Most of my army will move up into cover, I'll be hitting first blows. If I go second, I mean, if he has a lot of short range shooting, my vehicles are very strong, and so it's unlikely he'll actually be able to do anything against me. So I'm very well protected because like everyone is either in reserves or protected by a 3-up save in their vehicle. So it's hard for me to be upset or like be too worried if I go second, but first turn I would prefer just to be able to hit hard. So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so for me, the pros and cons list is almost exactly the same. First turn, I'll be able to run forward, get some good positions, shoot a bunch of stuff. And yeah, if I go second, nothing major can really get shot at without some great effort on your side. So, I mean, I got troops and transport, so they'll be okay. The Celestians are bodyguards, so he can't really single out my characters. So, yeah, the bigger shooters are behind cover or in trees over here, so I'll be okay if I go second, but really I want to try and go first and just kind of zoom up the board and see what I can do.
Alright then. Then let us, well, see who's first. First off, wait, before that, I'm going to set my roll to 6 in case the game cuts out and drops my dice.
Oh my gosh.
6! Are you freaking kidding me?
Huh.
2. 1! Yes,
One.
I'm first! For
What
the
the-
first time in like 3 games. Screw you.
So pathetic. Alright, well.
Yeah.
I guess. Alright, so for my objective, for my secondary, he picked the back objective. It is marked with a flag. So I need to try and get to it and hold that. And then I just had my Dominion squads gave their transport a free 6-inch move before the game started. So they did that. And so they basically just moved straight forward 6 inches.
What the? What the? What happened? Alright, so for my command phase, well, I had to show up all my ambush markers. And so the Genestealers had the ability where, which one was it? They came from below, which I can do one of two things. Either get a free move once they're revealed, or put them into underground. Since I got first turn, yeah, they're going to move forward. So they got their free 9-inch move, and then I revealed all my other markers, which my opponent didn't know which ones were going to be the transports and which ones were going to be the offensive vehicles. And so now, well, here we are. Alright then. So as far as the overall strategy is, the vehicles moved forward. The transports moved up to take the objectives. One transport stayed in the back with, well, to protect my main HQ. And the 2 rock grinders with the flamers moved up. They're not going to get close enough to hit the paragons in the back on the right side. I'll just aim for the vehicle. I mean, the flamer is strong enough to possibly hurt it, so we'll see how that goes. And then the rock grinder with a laser moved up to hit the castigator on the left, which has a crossfire marker given by the Nexos. And yeah. And then the Genestealers, I used a stratagem, which I wasn't able to get refunded by the Nexos, to move 6 inches flat for my run phase. And so they were able to move a total of 9 inches 9 inches for their movement, plus 6. So they are right up in the enemy's face. So I'm fairly confident that they will do pretty well. At least they will hit first and they will hit hard, and then they're going to die. But they will die killing a lot. Alright then.
Theoretically.
I mean, the dice will determine all, so we'll see. Alright, so for the psychic phase, the Magus, having no line of sight, is going to cast Might from Beyond, give +1 attack to the Genestealers. It goes off, my opponent tries to dispel it with Shield of Faith, which on a 6 he dispels it, he rolled a 1. So that failed. Because the Magus has no line of sight to the Genestealers, even though she's within 18-inch range, she uses Gestalt Consciousness, which for 1 CP, I can give it to anyone on the board, because it's a blessing. Any one of my guys, without line of sight, and without it being in range. And my Nexos was not able to refund that price. Alright, so for shooting phase, the first thing that's going to happen is... So I had the Goliath Rock Grinder with the mining laser on the left shoot at the Castigator. The Forest won't protect him because one of my units that's underground has Excavate, which destroys basically the effectiveness of a terrain piece and makes it just difficult terrain, so there's nothing protecting him. And so the mining laser fired and did nothing, missed all its shots, even with a +1 to hit, so hitting on 3s. It was very disappointing. I don't know why I bring them. And then the Goliath Rock Grinder next to him, with his Clearance Incinerator, fired at the Battle Sisters and killed 2. My opponent just rolled a ridiculous amount of 4-up saves for that.
That's right.
Yeah. I did like 8 wounds. Only 2 went through. And then all the way on the right, the Goliath Rock Grinder fired at the Immolator, successfully did 2 wounds with his Flamer. That's pretty good. And then the Goliath truck in the middle with its autocannon, twin-linked autocannon, fired at the Imperial Sacrosancts and actually killed a few. Killed 3 of them with the autocannon. Very surprising. And not much else. Then the other Goliath truck fired at the Immolator that was on the right and, well, didn't do anything. All its shots were saved. And then the guys on the inside fired with their seismic cannons on the Immolator, since it already had a crossfire marker added +1, so they would hit on 5s because they were heavy weapons and move, so it turned into a 4+, but the opponent saved all of them. Or, no wait, No, yeah. And then the other Goliath truck in the middle fired with its seismic cannons into the immolator there and did only 2 wounds. So overall, a very ineffective shooting phase, but I will say that the clearance incinerators have done more work than the mining lasers. That's the one thing I am noticing. So, yeah. Alright, so my Genestealers were the only ones that were really going to charge. I decided this turn that that's the best and probably safest thing to do. So the Genestealers charged the Sacred Sense and the Sister Superior. However, to stop them from setting to defend or doing Overwatch, I used Covering Fire and forced the Superior Sacred Sense to not be able to do that, and my Nexus refunded me the cost. So that was a good charge. Alright, so for the fight phase, my Genestealers were going to swing. So what I was going to have them do is I'm going to have 4 Genestealers swing on the Sisters and 5 Genestealers swing onto the Sacred Sense. One Genestealer couldn't make it, but while I piled in, I tagged in the Immolator and the Exorcist. The idea was to get them into combat so that I can screw over their shooting in the next turn and the guys inside, because these Genestealers are basically a suicide bomb. So the 4 Genestealers swung onto the Sisters. They had 20 attacks because the Magus gave them +1 attack. So they were 20 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s with their strength 5, AP -3. They wiped out the squad. And then the 5 other Genestealers who swung on the Sacrosanct did 18 wounds at -3. And my opponent had 4 up invuln save on all of them. And 10 went through. And so I wiped out the squad. So that was actually a very successful fight phase. None of my Genestealers are dead, but they're going to get wiped out in the next round probably. Yeah, good fight phase. Alright, at the end of my turn, I failed to get engaged on all fronts because my Genestealer unit is in both of my opponent's back corners, so it doesn't count. Grind them down is at the end of his turn, or the battle round, and bring it down, I haven't killed a vehicle, so we're stuck. So far, I got nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, go.
Alright, so the Castigator just inched forward a little bit. So the Dominions got out of the Immolator over here, and then this whole little side here moved up. So the Battle Sisters ran, the Immolator didn't need to run, neither did the Dominions. The Immolator in the middle, in combat with the Genestealers, and the Exorcist left combat. The Exorcist just solidified the objective, whereas the Immolator ran up and plugged a gap, essentially. Morvenval and the Missionary scooted forward towards the Genestealers because they're going to beat them up. The Battle Sisters on my left, your guys' right side, moved up to secure this objective. And then the Immolator, the Paragon Warsuits, and the Exorcist on the others on that side all kind of scooted out and then up. So essentially everything kind of moved forward, and we'll see how the shooting goes. Alright guys, so essentially a bit happened.
A bit.
Yeah, so this Exorcist shot at this Goliath Rock Grinder, brought it down to 1 wound left. Paragon Superior shot with her multi-melta and just evaporated the other Rock Grinder, but the 2 other Paragons tried to take the last wound off that Rock Grinder, failed. The Immolator shot its heavy bolter at this Rock Grinder, also failed to kill him.
I had to use a reroll to make my saves and stuff.
Yeah. And then the heavy flamers shot at his whatever. I rolled a 1 and a 2 for the amount of shots, which was super pathetic.
Yeah, the Neophyte squad.
Ended up killing, they all wounded, so killed 3 of them, but still it was pathetic. Moving over here, the Battle Sisters tried to pull off some Genestealer kills. They killed 1. And then I think I killed 2 more with Morvenval by shooting, so pretty uneventful. And then over here, the Castigator shot the Rock Grinder here, brought it down to 2 wounds. And then across the Immolator, the Battle Sisters, and the Dominions, they tried to also kill it. And they finally did at the end with the crack grenade, wasting the rest of the Dominion shots. So, yeah, so that was a shooting phase. A little bit happened, but not as much as I was hoping for. Alright guys, so essentially everything that charged succeeded. So Morvenval and the Priest charged these Genestealers, they got in. And then the Immolator actually charged these Genestealers, really just to hold them up. So that way they can't actually run and charge anywhere. So, got him. But yeah, so I don't actually expect to do anything but it charged. Alright, you guys, so Morgan Vol swung first, and she cleared the squad of Genestealers in just the one go.
I rolled horribly. I only saved 2 and then 7 deaths. So
Yeah, so it wasn't enough.
The-
But all of her hits succeeded, and all of her wounds succeeded, so that was kind of crazy too. And then the Immolator went, and it did a wound, but he saved it. So
and then my 5 Genestealers did 8 wounds back. The Immolator survives on 1 wound. So,
and that's all it needs.
yep.
So, alright, you guys. So for my turn, I got a whole lot of nothing as far as points goes.
And in the morale phase, I just used a Fearless, 2 CP, so that my 1 squad did not run away, but that was about it. Alright, so for the command phase, my Nexos gave the Primus buffs to the little squad of neophytes that are on the objective on the bottom right, who are just barely surviving, because they're the only ones who can receive it. And then the Nexos applied a crossfire marker on the Paragon suits. So we're going to see how that goes. And when it came down to movement, my Goliath Rock Grinder on the left moved up to get the objective, as well as, I don't know, deal with the vehicles in the area. Then my Genestealers departed from the Goliath Rock Grinder on the bottom right and moved up to the Paragon, since they have a 9-inch movement. And they could also run, but like I thought that was pretty pointless at the time. Shoot, I forgot one detail. Hold on. Later. And then the Goliath Rock Grinder moved to basically face off with the Immolator down there. As far as the rest of the Goliath Rock Grinder guarding my command structure moved to the right to be able to fire at the Paragons, and then the rest of my army moved in. My Neophytes with the Giant Squad moved to deal with the Paragons, my Acolyte Hybrids with the Hand Flamers moved to try to contest that objective, and then my Elite Hybrid Metamorphs showed up in the back to hopefully do something useful. So I don't know, we'll see what they can do. Alright, so also notice that my Acolyte or Neophytes moved over. I forgot that's like how they were supposed to be, since I needed them to curve around, and since they only had a 3-inch deep strike, they were able to do that. I just forgot that at the moment, but like nothing happened, so it was fine to move them. Now, basically what's going to happen in the Psychic phase is the Magus gave a blessing to the Pure Strain Genestealers, give them +1 attack. They're going to fight the Paragons on the right, and I had to spend the Gestalt Consciousness command ability to get it through, since I had no line of sight and they were out of range. And then, because the Magnus moved to this wall and could see through it now, I saw the vehicle that had 1 wound, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to hit it with a smite. And I succeeded with a smite. My opponent couldn't block it, and it auto-killed it. And then he spent a CP in order to forcibly make it explode. And he killed 2 of my Genestealers. And then he ended up killing all of his other troops. His 3 Sister Superiors next to it got 3 mortal wounds, died. The 2 Sisters of Battle on the objective died. So he basically just wiped out his whole flank here. So that went well for me. Alright, so for the shooting phase, a lot happened. So start off with the big stuff. The Paragon suits got hit hard. So I had a crossfire marker. I had the Goliath Rock Grinder at the bottom shoot at them with their flamers. Did like a wound. Then I had the Goliath trucks at the very bottom shoot at the Paragons. Did a wound, I think. Oh no, it didn't do anything at all. Then I had the Neophyte squad that was around there wrap around and shoot at them, and by the end of it, a total of 2 Paragon suits were gone. I used the stratagem Mass Firearms, which all 6s to hit automatically count as wounds, and so 30 shots with a shotgun and 4 flamers combined ended up killing 2 entirely, or finishing off 2. And then moved over to the side where the Goliath Rock Grinder fired at the Castigator up there, did some wounds with his mining laser, which has consistently just been a disappointment. It's like it just doesn't produce. Like it could, but it doesn't. And then I had the Acolytes fire. Actually, no, I didn't have them fire yet. I had the Goliath truck in the middle fire its autocannon at the Sisters, killed a few, and I had the Inhabitants inside mag dump all their shots in there, and they finish off the sisters with 5 shotguns, 2 flamers, and 2 seismic guns. They were dead before the seismic guns went up. Then I had the acolytes. This is where I made a mistake. I fired all my shots into Morgan Ball and did 13 wounds at minus nothing on her, and she only took 2 wounds. I should have instead fired everything at that missionary, because I probably would have just wiped him out, because she was toughness 5 and he was toughness 4, so massive difference. So that was a mistake on my part. And yeah, and that was it for my shooting. Alright, so for charges, the rock grinder on the left charged the castigator up there, and by doing so moved his body parked onto the objective, because he had rolled a 7 so he could make the move and go into contact. Then the rock grinder on the bottom charged and, well, made it, but my opponent decided to do Overwatch and successfully wounded him on his last wound, but I used my command point reroll to save him so he wouldn't die. So he's still in there, he's alive with 1 wound. Then the Genestealers charged the Paragon and made it on a 3. And then my hybrid metamorphs at the top, who came in, who didn't shoot anything, charged that Exorcist and failed. So we'll see how this game goes now. Alright, the Genestealers are first up. Because they received Might from Beyond, they got an extra 1 attack. And so with 25 attacks, they just barely killed the Paragon suit. Did a bunch of wounds, but when it came to saving, they saved most of them. They did 5 wounds in total. So that was a bit iffy, but wiped it out, and they moved towards the Exorcist. Then my rock grinder at the bottom that has 1 wound left swung at the Immolator. I did not know that it got bracketed on its attacks. There was a stratagem that if I used in the command phase would allow it to be treated as if it was at full. So we only got 4 attacks in total, because it's a D3 plus 2 because they charged. 2 plus for charging. And they successfully did 2 wounds to the Immolator. That was disappointing. But on the left, the rock grinder with the mining laser fighting against that castigator successfully did 6 wounds to it in melee with 8 attacks. And he swung back with his vehicles and did pretty much nothing. So, And then at the end of my fight phase, I spent 1 CP for Return to the Shadows. I can do it at the end of the movement phase or the fight phase. As long as they're more than 6 inches away from the enemy, they can go back into reserves, and where they can deep strike at 9 inches in the next turn. So I pulled out my giant squad of acolytes, so they will drop in at their leisure and just nuke someone. And that was my fight phase. Alright, so for points, I controlled 2, control 3 at the start, so I got my 8 points. At the end of the turn, I do have tie conviction because I do have my vehicle on top of one of his territory markers, so I get 2 points for there. I have models in every single quarter, so engage on all fronts. Grind them down will be at the end of his turn, and bring it down, I haven't destroyed a single vehicle.
Alright guys, so essentially everything I have kind of moved around to objective points. Or securing them if possible. So the Dominions popped out here in the middle and went to claim this objective. The Immolator scooted forward to see all of his characters. Morbid Ball moved in on the big squad, and the middle Exorcist kind of scooted a little farther away from these hybrid metamorphs. I don't really know what they do, but we'll see if they're still around. So yeah, alright. Alright, you guys, so quick recap because we had a small computer glitch.
Yeah, we lost a lot.
Right, so essentially my castigator moved out of combat. My Exorcist in the middle split fire between the big squad and the metamorphs, doing very little damage to both. The Priest and Morgan Val also shot into the big squad, killed a couple more. The Exorcist on the right side of your guys' screen shot at the Pure Strain Genestealers and did almost nothing, killed 2. The Immolator shot here, did nothing. These Dominions on the bottom left, I guess for you guys, killed the 3 Genestealers in the woods, and the Immolator split fire and did some damage to 2 of his characters.
Yeah, and but basically, like how the Goliath Rock Grinder survived is it almost died, but it survived just barely, simply because of reroll. Used the reroll to make it survive, and it did. I split fired upon the Primus and Magnus. They're almost all dead, but they're still alive just barely. Then he, in the charge phase, he charged with Morgan Val. I did Overwatch on them, did 2 more wounds, brought her to half. And then as the start of the fight phase, I used an ability called Coordinated Assault, which forces them, if they have a marker light, or not a marker light, but a crossfire marker, that they will fight last. And since they got what during the Overwatch, I essentially was able to make her fight last, so I get to swing first. And so that's what's happening right now in the fight phase. So sorry about that technical glitch, we missed a bit, but it was easy to catch up on.
Alright guys, so for combat, Morven Vol fought last, so I swung with my Immolator first. It did nothing. Shock surprise. It did, however, take 2 damage.
Yes, my Rock Grinder still can hit even though it has 1 HP left.
Yeah. And then Morven Vol, but she did wipe the whole squad because I used her once per game of swinging twice in a combat phase.
Yeah, and she wiped him out to the man. If I would have saved just 1 extra more, 1 would have been alive, but then probably would have failed to morale, so.
Yeah.
Well, what can you do?
Alright guys, so for primary I controlled 2, so I have 4 points on primary. I did get Tide of Conviction because I have 1 in his place, and I also got 3 points for Defend the Shrine because it was the one. I didn't really get anything for Assassination. I got close, but we'll see what next turn brings, and that was pretty much it.
Alright, so for command phase, the Nexus giving the Primus's buffs out to the 1 squad of neophytes that was on the battlefield at that time next to the 1 objective, and then that was pretty much it. I used Summon Familiar to no, not Summon Familiar, Hypermetabolism, to have the Primus heal D3 wounds. The Nexus helped him refund that. And when it came to movement phase, the Genestealers up top moved all the way up to get behind the Exorcist. The Hybrid Metamorphs moved closer to that Exorcist. The Goliath Rock Grinder moved closer to the Castigator to try to finish it off. The Castigator also has a crossfire marker given to him by the Nexus. Then my Goliath trucks discharged our guys, so my command structure was getting shot up because the truck wasn't able to protect them as well. So the troops got out to better shield to protect the command structure. The Goliath truck moved in the way. The other Goliath truck disgorged their troops and then moved the way to block any way of moving to get closer to them. And then these other neophytes that were disgorged just moved to line up to deal with the Dominions. And then I did this afterwards because I remembered after I stopped recording, is that the Acolytes came in again, and they're 6 inches away from the Missionary. They're just going to delete him. And then the Kelomorph, finally remember him, gets to show up. Will be 6 inches away. So, yeah. And that was my phase, or movement phase. Alright, so for the Psychic phase, the Magus casts Might from Beyond to try to give my Genestealers all the way at the top +1 attack. It goes off, but my opponent blocks it on a 6 with Shield of Faith. Then the Magus uses Smite to hit the Immolator, which goes off with a Super Smite, and then my opponent blocks it with a 6. So, alright, so for shooting, a lot happened. So the Rock Grinder on the top left fired and destroyed that vehicle that was in there. I don't remember what it was called. And he exploded and did 1 wound to my Goliath Rock Grinder in return. Then my Hybrid Metamorphs fired with their pistols, or flamer pistols, at the Exorcist. They did 15 hits and no wounds because they needed 6s, and they rolled a bunch of 5s. Then, moving on down, these Acolytes were ready to shoot at the Preacher, but I fired with the Kelomorph first and completely killed the Preacher and completely invalidated what these Acolytes were supposed to do. So that was poor foresight on my end. I should have had that Kelomorph shoot at the Morven Vol. And yeah, and then the Goliath Rock Grinder that's been stuck eternally on the bottom right fighting that Immolator fired and did a couple wounds, bringing it down to 5. It's Flamers and Heavy Stubber. And then on the bottom, so I had the Goliath truck up in the bottom middle, fire at the sisters that were on the objective, and they killed a few and gave it a crossfire marker. Then I had the neophytes that were right there mag dump into them and basically wipe them out with the help of that +1 to hit. Then I had the last Goliath truck on the very bottom shoot at that Immolator right there and did some wounds, but also gave it a crossfire marker. And then what happened is the neophytes that were surrounding the characters fired all its weapons in it and was able to do a few wounds because it had crossfire, but also had exposed on it, drawing a line through the. One of the models was able to draw a line through it to hit the Neophyte squad that's been on that other objective for a long time. And then that Neophyte squad shot in and did nothing. And the Acolytes who were set up there, 11 of them shot into the Immolator with their pistol flamers and successfully did 1 wound. They did a lot of hits, they did a lot of wounds, and then he saved them all. So the Immolator only has 4 left, close to dying. And yeah, that was a pretty productive shooting phase. Alright, so charges, very important. So the Hybrid Metamorphs charged the Exorcist and successfully got in with 7 inches. And then the Genestealers up top charged that Exorcist over there on the right and got it. And then in order to better protect my command structure, my 1 Goliath truck there at the very bottom charged the Immolator just to tie it up in combat to protect the rest. Alright, so that was a mixed bag. The Hybrid Metamorphs swung on the Exorcist up top and did absolutely nothing. They just rolled poorly, despite having 9 attacks, hitting on strength 6, because Twisted Helix gives +1 strength in combat, and they have a weapon that gives them +1 strength, so didn't work. Then the Genestealer swung on the Exorcist and did 1 wound. That was terrible. And then my Rock Grinder, he swung on my Rock Grinder and it survived. He swung back and did nothing back. And my Goliath truck swung on his Immolator, he did a wound, but he saved it. And then he swung back, and I saved it. His vehicles all swung back, did nothing except the Exorcist that was fighting the Genestealers, killed one of the Genestealers, so that happened. Alright, at this point we have decided to call it because it doesn't look like Sisters of Battle can really come back from that, because I have a lot more troops and units than they do, and they can cover very few places. So objective-wise, with so much more of the game to go through, I'm going to end up winning just by points. And yeah, and so MVP, LVP. Genestealer cults have won, Sisters have lost, so for me, for the MVP is the Goliath Rock Grinders, or mostly just the vehicles in general, because they really spared my troops. My guys would have just been picked off normally with their terrible saves. I mean, the one unit that appeared out in the middle of nowhere, even with a 5-up Feel No Pain, was just obliterated in a single turn, but these vehicles really preserved my army to be where they needed to and protected them really well, and protected the Genestealers as well, the small units. And so mostly my super MVP is not just the Goliath trucks, but the Goliath Rock Grinder. That fought on the bottom right, that in the first turn my opponent had dropped it to 1 wound left, and it stayed there the entire game and fought and survived the entire time. So it was an excellent weapon, an excellent vehicle. I did not play it as best I could because I have a stratagem that would have allowed me to use in my command phase. That would have given me my full attacks. So for 2 fighting phases, I could have had 8 attacks in the first and 6 attacks in the second out of the 3. So I played it poorly. It probably would have defeated that vehicle in front of it if I used that. I kept forgetting. And my LVP is, well, my Hybrid Metamorphs. They showed up, failed their charge, couldn't shoot at anything, and when they got to charge in, they did absolutely nothing. So, I mean, I feel like they had a very bad setup, so I can't fully blame them, but they did perform the worst in this entirety of the battle. Everyone did well. Everyone did well. But these guys did not as well. So that was my MVP, LVP. So what's yours?
My MVP was Morven Vol. Every time she got into combat, she just did so much damage. Yeah. So her shooting wasn't the greatest, but her combat was pretty good. And as a whole, my army kind of failed at life, so she was really the only one that did anything. LVP was the Immolators. Now, they, like you were saying with the transports, they actually saved my troops quite a bit. But the actual Immolators themselves, as far as damage goes, did almost nothing. So they kind of just sucked really hard.
Yeah, I did my best to make sure to tag your vehicles in combats to deny their effectiveness. Yeah.
Well, even still, like, they had, like, flamers and stuff, but I was just rolling so bad with all the flamers and everything like that, so it was just, they just never really did anything.
Dang, you have the same type of flamers that I do, except you have 3 more inches. 18-inch flamers? Goodness.
Yeah, well, I mean, sisters are a flamer army. There's actually a secondary objective where I get points for killing people with flamers or melted guns. So, yeah, so they're big on the flamers. But yeah, so I would say those are MVP, LVP. The emulators are cool. Maybe I might take one as a transport, but not like a bunch of them because I don't think they actually. I mean, and I wasn't super great, so that was probably a part of it. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, it's like bringing the most out. That's why I had trouble with my MVP, LVP. But
Yeah.
overall in the game, I'm surprised that my army did this well. I was able to push forward, and my squads that came in, they did a lot of good. My acolytes, the one with the flamers, did excellent in obliterating. Well, although technically they didn't, because they never really had any targets. Everyone they shot at was pretty much dead. They shot at Morgenval once, and they shot at this tank. But that was mostly due to the fact that the rest of my army really just picked you off. That's
Yeah,
pretty
so
much
sisters
it.
are pretty squishy, and I think they
Yeah,
do
with their
better
3 up
with,
armor saves, yeah.
well, with their toughness 3.
Mhm.
So I think they do better with lots of numbers of infantry scattered around as opposed to fewer numbers, because they're technically elite, I guess, because they have the 3 up save and they have like weapon and ballistic skill 3 for the most part. But that's about it. They're strength 3, toughness 3, so they're single wounds. So I think their numbers is their game.
Yeah, I can see that, but like honestly, yeah, bringing in vehicles, like I didn't bring any of the Atlan Ridge Runners, and 'cause just the mining lasers just keep failing me. But these incinerators, I mean, technically speaking, the incinerators really didn't do anything. One of the rock grinders with the incinerator was destroyed in one turn, but you focus fire it in. But it did protect the 5 Genestealers that were inside it because they can hold up to 5, and the big trucks can hold up to 10. So, I mean, they did better, I guess you could say. The Goliath rock grinder here with the mining laser eventually killed that one vehicle, but so like I mean the Goliath rock grinders overall didn't do that much, but they did survive and they protected a lot of my important units. And the Genestealers, they hit really hard. That one unit on the side here doing like 9 wounds in a single go against an immolator was incredible.
Right.
So it is a bit difficult to decide. And I think I just realized I might have made a mistake. Doggone it, I gave my guys my hybrid metamorphs a Trappist Sprung, which is where they have 3d6 and discard the lowest for their charge. I forgot about that, dang it.
No, it
Yeah.
didn't make a huge difference.
Well, I mean, there would have been 5 of these guys and not 3 hitting, so... And they would have been in combat with it, tagging it. So yeah, there's still some practice, still some things to get better at, getting there. Any major changes you would do with your list, or?
Yeah, I think I don't think this list worked out super well. I think sisters can do shooting, but I think it's mass shooting with lots of numbers. Again, as opposed to a few units. Like all the vehicles, like they weren't bad, but because they were really my only sources of shooting, I think that was the kind of the struggle that they had. So I think I need to go more mass shooting or combat. They actually have quite a lot of combat.
Yeah, me going
buffs,
first really
stacks.
helped me a lot. I wiped out a good portion of your army with that 140-point Genestealer unit.
Well, even those guys though, they were just back up, so they still would have only been like maybe up to here by the 3rd turn or whatever, because they're not fast. So
Yeah, well, control. This did force a lot of things with your objectives and stuff, and technically, I think I took it from you with these guys being here in the charge. Shoot, forgot it was there. All right then. Well, GG's. I think I'll be switching out to a different army next week. I haven't decided, just to keep things fresh. But I am happy that I was able to get a Genestealer cult army that was able to push forward and do pretty well. I mean, there's some limits or issues here and there, but like, and to be fair, the giant squad of guys that got obliterated, yeah, they got obliterated, but they wiped out the Paragon Warsuits. I mean, the Paragon Warsuits never got to do anything, so.
yeah.
Yeah, so.
All right, cool.
Yeah, and GG's.
Yeah.
I pressed the
Too
button.
slow.
I pressed the button. Whatever. GG's. Bye.